How to make my homemade Bakewell Blondies. They're so thick, fudgy, full of almond, jam and white chocolate chips. They are the perfect summery bake. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, where today we're going to make one of my favourite tray bakes in the world, which is my Bakewell Blondies. Blondies are a white chocolatey, light, non-based chocolate version of a brownie, so they're thick and fudgy still, but much lighter. And because these ones are Bakewell, they're full of almonds, there's raspberry jam in there, and honestly, they are just brilliant. And I know that you're going to absolutely adore them too, so let's get making them. So when you're making these Bakewell Blondies, the base blondie recipe is quite similar to my other ones, where with mine, there's no melted chocolate in the blondie. Just because of these ones, I find it easier just to add the chocolate through the chocolate chips. But the beauty of these ones is that thick almond flavour, where you have some ground almonds in the recipe as well as some almond extract, and you stick with your main core recipe of butter, brown sugar, granulated sugar, eggs, flour, chocolate chips, maybe a little bit of cornflour for texture. But honestly, there's so many ingredients, it looks like a lot, but it's so simple to make, and every single ingredient is worth it, I promise. When you're mixing these blondies, it's super easy if you have a stand mixer like this, or an electric can mixer, or even just a bowl with a spoon or spatula, because you mix your melted butter and your two sugars together until they're just combined. The melted butter makes this much easier, I promise. And then because these blondies are slightly different to like a cookie bar, you have 3 eggs in the recipe. So again, that's really easy. Just mix them in with some almond extract, then add your dry ingredients and fold them through. The good thing about this is you add some white chocolate chips to have that chocolate dappled effect throughout, and then you pour it into your tin and swirl through your jam. But of course, you can do it a little bit differently if you want, where you just whack the jam in. But I promise you, swirling the jam through at the end is worth it, because it makes just a bite of jam in every single one, and I promise you, you're just gonna love it. Ooh. When your blondie mixture is ready, it's a thick, gloopy mess essentially, and it can look a little bit gross, but trust me, it's worth it. It'll look better when it's baked. But either way, once you've mixed all of these ingredients together, it's ready to pour into your tin. I always use a 9-inch square tin like this. I'll link in the description box as always, but this is the perfect size tin for my tray bakes. And as you often see in my videos, I always use bulldog clips to help stick my paper down when I'm pouring something in, because then it doesn't get messy, the paper doesn't go out the way, much easier. But once you're ready to pour it into your tin, make sure you have your favourite jam ready. I use raspberry jam in this recipe, but you can use whatever flavour you want. You could even use an almond butter, I guess, but to have the Bakewell sort of charm, I'm using raspberry jam. And then I sprinkle some flaked almonds on top because they turn out nice and toasted once it's baked. So once your blondies are in the tin and it's ready to bake, make sure you put them into a preheated oven. Classically with blondies and brownies, people can struggle to make them bake properly, and it's all about making your mixtures the right thickness before you start. So follow the recipe to see what it should look like, and then make sure your oven is definitely preheated. If you're ever unsure, it's always good to get an oven thermometer just to guarantee you know where your oven is at, because sometimes no matter what you set them to, it might not be accurate. So I bake for on the dot of 25 minutes in my 160 fan oven. Sometimes it will take a little bit longer naturally, especially if you change the shape of your tin. So make sure to try and get it as on the recipe as possible. And then you bake until there's a little wobble in the middle, leave them to cool completely in the tin, and preferably set them in the fridge for a few hours for the perfect Bakewell Blondie. So now these blondies are out the oven, leave them to cool in the tin and then set them in the fridge for a few hours for the perfect fudgy texture. So once your blondies have set in the fridge after cooling, they'll be nice and firm and ready to slice up. So one thing I will say, if you're in a rush and you want to eat a blondie, you don't have to set them in the fridge, but once I've cut these up, you'll see why it's worth it. You can freeze them if you want and just speed up the process a little bit, but if you can, let them set for longer to get the perfect fudgy texture. Or if you want them gooey and warm, go for it, I don't blame you. Just eat them with a spoon. But either way, they're the best Bakewell Blondies ever. The perfect Bakewell Blondie. So yeah, as you can see, these blondies are absolutely perfect. I am genuinely, I know I say this a lot, but I am genuinely obsessed with them because they're the perfect flavour balance. They're gooey, fudgy, full of jam. Luckily, these will last, if they last, because you'll want to eat them quicker. They'll last for at least 3-4 days in the fridge or at room temperature. You can also freeze them for 3 months. Just put them in a container, wrap them if you want, and they'll be absolutely fine to thaw at room temperature. But of course, all of the information is on the blog post, which I'll link in the description box below. And the recipe would be down there. The tin will be there that I've used, anything you fancy that you need. And of course, if you need to, ask any questions you want in the comment box and I will get back to you about that. Any tips, I'm here to help. But of course, I hope you enjoy the perfect Bakewell Blondie.